It's time to get started with sketching. If you're over 50 and you've been thinking about starting a new hobby that is artistic in nature, but you have no idea where to start, you don't know what supplies to use or where to get them, or what to do, this is a video for you. Using a few simple supplies, I'm going to show you how to go from a blank canvas to a masterpiece. The footage you're going to see is shot in real time so that you understand my process from start to finish and get to see this medium in action. So let's dive in. So you're going to see how we sketch or draw in action using my Magic Daffodil template, which you can get for free by signing up to my email list using the link in the description box below. It's a great resource, so I suggest you do that. I'm going to give you a little hint. The magic daffodil isn't actually magical. The magic happens when you use this over and over to build your skills, and you get to see how you develop as an artist. In the second video, we're going to discuss sketching and drawing in more detail. And I want to talk about the supplies before we jump in. There really isn't much involved. This is the beautiful thing about sketching and drawing. Now, I'm going to use the word sketching because this is the starting point when you want to learn to sketch or draw. Sketching is kind of the first stage because sketching, it's loose. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be precise. And it's great for practice. Whereas when you're drawing something, it's a little more polished. It's a little more official. So if you start with sketching, it's a great way to build your skills. So we're going to speak to sketching in this particular video. All I have is a sketch pad. Yes, a pad of paper in which to put your sketching on. I also have pencils, and these are just basic graphite pencils. HB pencils would be perfect. You know, those old mustard yellow ones with the little pink eraser on the end that never worked and always ripped your paper. Yeah, HB pencils, perfect, as long as they're nicely sharpened to a fine point. Which brings me to the next thing. Make sure you've got yourself a good pencil sharpener and an eraser. We're going to keep this simple because right now what we want to do is get some color down on our page, right? On our daffodil. Before I talk about that, I'm going to tell you about the paper. This is like a step up from photocopy paper, which you could use. You could use photocopy paper and go ahead and get your pencil and sketch on it. Absolutely. What I have here, because in the beginner series, I like to keep stuff cheap. If you have the means to buy expensive stuff, that's great. Do that. But as a beginner, you may not even know if you like whatever medium you're trying. So this is just literally a sketch pad. It's 9 by 12. It is 30 sheets. And I got this guy at Dollarama for $2. 30 sheets for $2. That is a bargain. Any kind of paper pretty much will do, as long as it's smooth. If it's nice and smooth, it's going to be easy to work with. If you've seen the other videos where we're actually using color, you're going to have an idea about shading and light. And sketching is where you really need to understand this. If you can learn to sketch, and like I said, it doesn't have to be great, it doesn't have to be perfect, but basic sketching is going to take you farther than anything else. This is my belief. I say this because I did things backwards. I was all over the place and I was scared to sketch. So I avoided it until I couldn't anymore. I suggest you dive in and just do it. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And this will translate into other forms of art as well. So having said that, we're going to actually start sketching now. So what I did was I envisioned each of the petals a pale yellow. And the trumpet part, I don't even know if this is called a trumpet, but that's what I call the trumpet of the daffodil, is going to be more of an orange color. We have the little pistil or stamen, whatever this guy is, sticking out. And we have our green stem. That's it. Now, of course, we're sketching. We're not actually going to have color. So how is this going to look? How does this play out? Well, we're using shadow or shade, which is darkness, and light, which is light. And the contrast between the two is what kind of tricks your eye into seeing the form of a daffodil. Yeah, we have the outline here, but we want to make it look a little more 3D, like it's popping off the page. Like you can look at it and go, wow, that looks like a daffodil. instead of an outline of a daffodil. So let's get started. We're just going to pick one of our petals here, and we're going to get started with this guy. And all I'm going to do is very, very lightly, we always use a really light hand when we're doing something like this to show a difference or variation in color, which is really just in black and white. I start at the bottom of the petals, and I'm going to explain this one more in detail. We'll go quicker with the rest of them. What I do is I start so that the bottom, where it's attached to the flower, which would be around the trumpet area, is a little bit darker, and it's going to get lighter and lighter as we get towards the tip of the petal. And the reason for this is that if you think about a flower in nature, if a flower is like this, in the center, as we come into the center of the flower, like at the bottom where the stem comes out here, the petals are closing up a little bit, like around this trumpet. This one looks fully open, but there's still going to be where it attaches a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a divot in there, and that creates a bit of a shadow. It's going to naturally look darker. So we're going to do the same thing here. I also am envisioning this particular daffodil as naturally just a little bit darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. Does this mimic real nature? Kind of. I'm taking a little bit of artistic license here. Think about daffodils. They come in all kinds of shades and colors and variations, so we can make up whatever we want right now. We're not going for realism. We're going for half decent. And all I'm doing is I'm coming in with my good old HB pencil, and I'm just shading around here very lightly. I know it looks like it's coming off dark. And I'm just going to keep going over this almost like little circular motions until it's filled in as much as I want it to be and as dark as I want it to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to very lightly start taking it up a little bit. Taking it up, and it's going to get lighter and lighter as we go. Super light hand is what I'm using. And I'm going to come back down towards the dark part, and I'll even go over this a little bit so that it blends in. So it doesn't look like a stark line between the dark and the light. You can still see it a little bit. I'm not mad at that. But we can come in and do some more. And even lighter and lighter as we go on. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just to give you an idea of how to represent the dark and the light parts of a flower. And this is gradual, so it's not very, very complicated. We've already got the outline of the flower, so we don't need to do anything with that. Your eye can tell, yes, this is definitely the outline of a petal. And then I'm going to move on to the next one. That's it. For the first layer, we're going to do more, and we're going to tweak once we finish the flower, take a look at it and go, what do we want to change? What do I like? What do I not like? So I'm going to move on to the next petal, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a little bit darker. I'm going to turn my page, my sketchbook a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing. Starting at the bottom, we're going in a little bit darker. I went outside the line there, so I'm just going to get my eraser and go over that. So we've got that darker color, because there's no color there, around the bottom. And then as we move up, we're going to get lighter and lighter and just keep blending, getting lighter and lighter as we go up. And as I get towards the top here, I'm going to stop because I don't want any color at the tips. That's what I've decided for my daffodil. I'm still seeing a bit of a line here, so I'm just going back over to tighten it up a little bit, make it look a little better. Okay, I'm all right with that. Before I move on to the next petal, I'm going to come back over here and see how we can no longer tell where the difference is between the two. We're just going to come in and darken that up a little bit. That's all. Just darken it up a little bit. Don't need to do that up here on the petals, but here so that you can differentiate between the two is probably a good thing, right? And a little more of that. Same thing. I'm going to start down here with this petal. And I'm just going to keep going over that area until it's as dark as I'm happy with. I'll start bringing it up a little bit. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same as these. Like, you can tell there is a variation between the two. It doesn't have to be perfect. It depends on where the light is hitting the flower too. This is just something that happens in nature. Think about it. When you're outside and you're walking around and the sun is shining like it is today here, it's beautiful. If you look at a flower, let's say a red rose is the example I like to speak of. If you look at a red rose and it's out in a garden and the sun is shining, is every square nanometer of the rose going to be the exact same red? No, it's not. Your eye is going to take it in as red, but it's also going to notice where the shade and the light is on that flower. And this is why the colors, the perceived color of it changes. It looks different, right? Let's see. Am I happy with that? I think I'm happy with that. We're going to define here between the two, right? I'm going to put our defining line so that it's easier to see. And we're going to move along to the next one. And I like doing these videos in real time. Like I said, this gives you a realistic idea of like, how quickly could I pull this off if I really wanted to, if I wanted to make it quick, right? Or if you're planning, if you're thinking, hey, I love that magic daffodil that Nancy did. I love that magic daffodil. I'm going to try that. If Nancy can do it, anyone can do it. So I'm going to do it. And you want to schedule some time and you're looking at your phone, you're looking at your calendar. You're like, man, I'm busy. Well, do you need to block in 15 minutes or do you need to block in, an hour and a half? This will give you an idea. This will give you a bit of an idea. And this magic daffodil template, like this is something that I created. Believe me, if you knew how many daffodils I have sketched and painted in the last couple of months to get good and quick at drawing a daffodil, I'm telling you, this is how I came up with this, but it's going to be helpful for you just because the composition, the way it's been put together and laid out, I tried to make it like super simple. We're missing our little tip here. There we go. That's better. Like it took me a while to do this, but I tried to keep it super simple so that you can repeat this. You can do this over and over again instead of taking a lot of time to do one thing or one version of it, right? Because repetition and muscle memory, this is the game changer. This is what's going to make or break you. This is where the skills come in. And so I would rather have everybody doing this magic daffodil like 100 times, just quickly over and over again, as quick as you can, rather than do it 3 times and try to make it perfect every time. It's the repetition where your skill is going to build. And so, yes, I have drawn the magic daffodil, but as we delve in deeper into sketching and drawing, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to sketch this. So you can actually create your own sketch of the magic daffodil. And maybe we'll throw in a few others as well. A few other pointers, but this is just for you to see what's possible, right? How long is it going to take to do this? As a beginner, like I said, I'm a beginner. I don't know what I'm doing. What was it? A little bit of a story time now. I don't mind doing these. When I was doing the markers, the marker tutorial, the marker walkthrough, doing the magic daffodil with markers, alcohol markers. I had just like a couple days before played with alcohol markers. I didn't know how to use them. I was figuring stuff out in the video. So if you haven't seen that, you got to watch it. It's a good one too. Have a whole new respect for alcohol markers, alcohol ink markers. Okay. That's okay. That's not bad. Again, we're gonna outline petal so that we can see. Look, see, it's coming together. Looks a bit like a daffodil. And then this last little guy up here, he's going to stay pretty light. Here's another thing I will talk about with shade and light. Going back to talking about in nature. Okay, so in nature, if this daffodil is outside in the garden, I just colored over the lines. See? Good thing I have my eraser handy. If you're out in nature, think about this. What light is going to be hitting this daffodil? It's going to be the sun. And it's either going to be coming up here if it's high noon, maybe it's rising or setting, so it's over here, rising over here, whichever way that goes, right? The sun's coming down like this. So naturally, the top of the daffodil and the tips of the leaves, which are the farthest or closest to the sun, the light source, they're going to be lighter or look lighter. And what's down here and underneath will look a little darker. So it makes sense that around here and these leaves will be a little darker than what you see up here. So this little guy poking out the back, the tip of him, he's going to be pretty light. So now we have filled in all of the petals. This is a good start. I'm not mad at that. I'm just going to touch this guy up here a little bit. There we go. Now we're going to do a similar thing and fill in this little trumpet. So I got to I want these little scallops, we'll call them, these little scalloped edges to be a little darker because we want to be able to see them. There we go. So we're going to start down here on the base of the trumpet, and I'm actually going to bring this down here too. Darken the outline. Because as soon as I start sketching, that's going to get lighter. That's going to start to disappear. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to let me turn that, bring our pencil down here. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm trying to mimic what I've done in the other mediums as well, I'm going to bring this guy down. There we go. And I'm going to erase this guy. There we go. That's a little better. I'm going to try and mimic what I did in the other mediums a little bit. And what I did was down here near the base is a little bit darker, as well as coming up the sides here and just underneath the trumpet, because this trumpet, I mean, this is a basic sketch, but this trumpet, this side of it would kind of fold back this way, and this side of it would kind of fold over this way. So if this were to fold over this way, you'd have a bit of a shadow underneath here. That would just naturally happen anyway. So I don't mind putting a tiny bit of darkness under here, just a little teeny tiny bit. And then bringing up the color sort of closer to the middle and coming down from the top. This is just going to be super light, super, super light. And there you go. That was pretty good. That looks all right. I'm not mad at that. Darken this up a tiny bit. This guy is darkened up over here. And there you go. You can see the bottom of the trumpet. It's a little bit darker. I'm even going to add a little bit more just down here. Darker at the bottom. We got a little bit of shadow under here. And closer to the center, it's a little bit lighter. And do the same thing here. In the interior of the trumpet, it's going to be even lighter. The darkest part is on the outside. So the inside has got the light capturing it. So I want to keep that light. And if I'm sounding more technical than you might want to hear, these things will come in time. You'll catch on and you'll understand what I'm talking about more, especially as you go through the series. Like I might use terms and things like that maybe you don't know or understand, but you will learn and catch on in time. So don't let that discourage you. Just pick up a pencil, some paper, and give it a try. And I'm just going around the edges here where there might be a little bit of shadow just on the inside, and we're keeping all this in here pretty light. Now we've lost our little pistil and stamen there, easy to draw back in. I'm going to put a little doodad on that guy. Maybe even put another couple in here. Okay. There we go. And this is just our first layer. We're gonna do a little more. But last, let's just color in this stem. And what I would do, I envision a light green stem where the sun hits it on this side. I'm envisioning the light coming like this. And then on the other side will be sort of the darker part, and I put a little bit darker green in there. So in order for the stem to look like it has a light and a dark side, what are we going to do? We're going to shade it. We're going to shade it. I'm going to fill this all in so it's about the same. And then underneath the petal, there might be a little bit of shadow in there too. And then I'm going to come down with another layer of that graphite pencil, good old HB, coming down. Now, can you see where it's just that little bit darker? Just a tiny bit. I'm going to take it all the way down. There we go. And then start to bring it into the center a little bit, just so the line isn't so harsh. That's all. Just a super, super light hand to blend it in a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be exactly equal or even. And I'm going to make the bottom of the stem a little bit darker too. The whole stem. There we go. And as you can see, we've got a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. I'm going to just fix up this edge. There we go. And we have a sketched daffodil. And as you can see, my hands are covered in lead, which I've gotten all over the paper. There are ways to get around that too. And I'm probably not helping it by brushing with my dirty hand. Let's see what we can do here. See, I show you my mistakes. I show you what I do wrong and how to fix it. Well, thank goodness for erasers. That's all I have to say. All right, there we go. That's a little better. So now I like the look of this. I think it's pretty good. Let's see. Maybe go in a little bit darker here. A little bit darker on this guy. Just a little bit. And maybe a tiny bit darker up here. Oh, I do want to define this line between the big guy and our little guy poking out there. Okay. And maybe even just a little bit of definition on this one. Here we go. There we are. You can even bring the definition up a little bit and let it fade out. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt anything. There we go. See? Pretty. Now, this is not bad. This is a typical basic beginner rendering of that. But what we could do is the other elements that I have brought into the petals in the other examples are things like, you ever look at a flower and it's kind of got these little veiny things coming up from the bottom going up through the petal, maybe not all the way to the top, but it comes from where it joins and comes up a little bit. And then sometimes they'll even have a lighter shadow coming from the tip back down into the flower. Well, we're going to do that. All you do is you take your pencil and at the base, you just bring a couple of little curved bits into the center and let them follow the petal. The petal curves this way and it curves this way. So have these little lines curving up from where they are. You can have as many as you want. Some can even be longer, some can be shorter. It's just a hint of reality coming into the petal. Even this guy could have a little one coming up there. And so it just gives it more dimension, makes it look a little more real. Having said that, we've got the bits coming down from the top. So you could just take your pencil and very lightly have that shadow coming down the lighter part of the petals. And what I do is I look for wherever there's a dip or a divot, and I bring it down from there. And if there isn't one, you can kind of make one. Let's start here. See how this is a dip and a divot? I would just do that. Same thing. Have it curve the same way the petal does. Here, there's a bit of a dip. One there, and one there. Here's a dip. Here's one. Here's one here. Here's one here. Just super basic. Super basic. Look at this. I'm even drawing upside down. And then even this little guy can have just a little tiny one. Dips and divots, just follow them. It follows the natural curve of the flower, of the petal. And there we go. See, this is bringing even more realism into what the flower looks like. I think I'm going to leave it there. There are a few other techniques we could use to lighten up more of the center and give it another different look, but this is at least a general, hey, this is what it could look like. Future Nancy popping in here for a minute. Something I did not mention that I wanted to point out is that when you start shading or laying down your graphite pencil onto your paper, you don't want to be pointing down like this. You want to have your pencil on the side, because if you want a nice light shading that you can control, you want this part of the pencil, the flat part, which is nice and wide with the lead, to be able to do this. This is fine for detail, like when you want to go around and define parts of your drawing. Otherwise, when you're shading, you want to lay your pencil flat on its side like so for better control. All right, we're going to pop back into Past Nancy. I really and truly believe out of all of the tutorials that I could give, of all the media that I could speak about, the sketching is so powerful and so wonderful and will really elevate your skills as an artist. All right, we're going to leave it there. So thank you for watching, and until next time, happy creating.